This is the Running Channel podcast, a very special live episode from the World Championships out in Budapest as guests of New Balance. And being back in this environment is why I'm incredibly nervous, and I've already done this introduction at least once.
Keep calm, Andy. Don't panic, you old flannel.
I'm doing my best not to panic. Thanks very much. Yeah, we have a live audience here, some of whom might not have seen this before, so this is normal. Basically, I get all of the stick. But more excitingly today, we've also got access to two incredible New Balance athletes, Jake Wightman, the 2022 world champion over 1,500 meters, and also Ciara Mageean, who has just finished fourth in this year's edition of the World Championships, also over 1,500 meters in an Irish record. So obviously 1,500 meters is the best distance. So I'm more excited than I've ever been in my life. So we should probably just get stuck in.
Let's do it.
Okay, so we're in Budapest. This is sort of like the old days for me, but very different for you guys.
Well, yeah, I mean, you say we're in Budapest, mate, but I mean, it wasn't exactly easy getting here.
Yeah, can we just do that for a sec? I know we're here to talk about athletics, but wow, what a journey we had to get here.
This is going to be a little bit of a kind of counselling session for us because it was traumatic for us to get here.
It was. I've got PTSD. We took about 7 planes, 3 buses, 2 trains and a dalla to get here. In fact, it took that long. On day 3, I thought, should we just go to Tokyo for the next World Championships?
I don't think we would have made that one in time.
Well, even getting here for the podcast recording, it was really exciting because actually, as we were walking across, we caught the lead group of the women's marathon running at 7 a.m. because it's incredibly hot. I'm sweating just sitting here in this room. But we couldn't then cross the bridge to get here, so we had a proper panic run around with all our equipment as well to try and get here in time to actually do it.
Yeah, it is toasty. Did you run in anything as hot as this?
I ran Osaka World Champs 2007. Yeah, it was like 36, 38 degrees, and my heats, which was quite unusual for the 1500, I think, were at about midday, 1 p.m. So the end of the morning session. And then I wanted to get straight in an ice bath. That's the hottest I've ever run in. It was really tough. Yeah.
Sarah, you don't cope too well with the heat, do you?
I hate it. So we arrived having not slept for 36 hours, and obviously me and Andy made the sensible decision to go for a run.
In the middle of the afternoon, yeah.
And then Andy was like, yeah, let's go for a jog. Let's go for an easy jog. And I was like, okay, we get 3K in. His easy jog is my 10K PB pace, and he dropped me.
No. You let me go.
I had to turn around or I was going to die.
Fair enough.
I mean, I just think
you went to
bed. So impressive. Yeah, I mean, they went for a run. I went out, tried to find a Pinot Grigio or a Gavi, and because my phone didn't work, because we've been traveling for 6.5 years to get here, I just went into a shop and all I had was my card, and I was like, well, you know, a glass of wine was 1,623 Hungarian forints. I have no idea if that's expensive or not.
No, it's not. It's a bargain out here.
Is it a bargain?
Yeah.
All right, okay. So I got a cheap bite. I was like, I could get a nasty surprise when I get back to the UK. This could be a very, very expensive trip, or it could be a very cheap one. Same happened in the stadium last night, which was amazing, by the way.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so, excellent segue. You can tell that one of us is a broadcast professional.
Just. Yeah. It was amazing there last night, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. I was really nervous. That's the first time I've been in a stadium at a major championship since the 2012 Olympics, because I was injured and then I didn't make 2016, and then I was too scared to go back in.
You
there.
did nervous going in?
Yeah, I was really nervous yesterday. I wasn't even running, but I had those old feelings of you can see all of the stuff that actually happens behind the scenes that you don't always see, although they're doing a good job this year of covering it, is the call room. That's terrifying. The
which room?
The call room, so about an hour sometimes in some championships before the actual start, you have to have finished your warm-up. Maybe it's half an hour. And then you have to go into the final call room. They check your bag, make sure you're not taking anything illegal onto the track. I don't know what anyone's ever tried to take onto the track that you wouldn't be allowed to take.
You've got to go through a scanner to get on the track.
No scanner. At various points, they measure the length of your spikes. And now there are different types of spike technology. Yeah. I don't know whether they measure the thickness of them. But it's checking what's in your bag, checking there's no sponsor conflict as well that you're going to take out, or like maybe political statements. I don't know. Anyway, but they check all of that. But actually, that's not the bit that's nerve-wracking. Yeah. The bit that's nerve-wracking is you're then in a very small room with, depending on your event, 11 of your competitors. And when I did it, no one would talk. It was terrifying. So it's like all of the 11 other people that you're trying to beat. And no one sees that, but then I know that's happening.
Do people look at each other? Or is it just a room of people just like...
Head down.
Don't look at me.
A bit of both. I think I've got a good question for Jake on this later because we did catch up about it before, about whether anyone talks in that environment. No one talked generally in my experience, and I think
that says quite a lot about you.
Yeah, I didn't have any friends. That's a problem.
You know when they come down and now there's the tunnel. There's like hype music, and then people are kind of like doing the ball and like flicking their hair. I can't imagine you doing that, mate.
I would.
You did have 10 years to come up with something to do. Did you ever get a...
No, we didn't have that. So this is like black
Before,
and white.
different era.
They were posting the results with paper on the walls.
There were
was
just
no,
pigeons
no technology.
flying around. Yeah.
I guess what have been your highlights this week so far? It's amazing to be out here, and I know Rick, like you're out there as a fan in the stadium.
Yeah, so obviously I've been to stadiums before, but only ever in the mix zone or like doing commentary. So actually to come last night and sit with you two in the stands watching the 800-meter women's semi-finals was seriously impressive, wasn't it?
So good. Yeah, mine is the same. Just the atmosphere in there. I think especially because obviously we've had COVID, we've had a lot of empty stadiums. It's so nice to come to a full stadium, packed
40,
out, see just people cheering. I will say one very small thing that I personally love is that last night it was also the javelin finals.
I know what this is, yeah.
Obviously, all the athletes amazing, but the personal highlight for me is the fact that to get the javelin, because they throw it so far back to the start, they have a little electric car.
Do they?
Yeah, did you see it last night?
No.
Yeah.
That is, if I could work and like an athletics championships, I would want to be on the controller. Imagine.
Please don't take offence and still be
we see
nice
the
to Jake and
gold
Ciara. The highlight of Sarah's week is the little robots that bring the javelins back.
I did spend a long time going like, what car is that?
Yeah, that's what you were more bothered about. But amazingly as well, we do some stuff on the channel where we're testing out different paces, because I'm definitely not as fast as I was anymore. And it's actually quite hard to put into context how fast people are running. That's the amazing thing I think you get in the stadium. And that was what was amazing for me being back there, was just the sense of speed. We saw the 200-meter finals, the 800-meter semis, and like the 800-meter semis, they were running, the 800-meter women's semi-finals, they were running 58 for the first lap. And Sarah had a go the other week at running 5K world record pace.
Yeah, we put out a video this week where we were trying to run 5K world record pace, and I floored it around and couldn't get under 80. So the fact that they're doing in this heat, the fact that it starts with a 5 is boggles my brain.
Yeah. So let's talk about the heat. I have some notes here of the things that I thought were interesting, because I'm a geek. The women's 5K heats, one of my highlights, because one of the youngest athletes in the field in the first heat, they went off really slow, but very quickly she made a decision to just run a steady pace, 15-minute pace, which actually in this temperature is fast, but it's not, otherworldly for the kind of talent that was in that. And everyone let her get away. And so she had 150 meters, maybe 200-meter lead at one point. And then everyone, hopefully was rooting for her to kind of hang on to it as everyone just closed in on her towards the end. So I think that was Kauna from Latvia, but it was amazing because she did get through. So she made the final. So those are the kind of unsung hero stories that you remember at the time, but they're obviously not going to be in the papers for years to come. But like little things like that.
It's an interesting point as well, because I have never thought about the amount of tactics that go into all of these races. You obviously look at, you think, you train, you run really fast, job done. But there's
yeah, that was it.
Jake, Ciara, sorry.
Well, I genuinely, for that reason, and I know if you speak to anyone who does any distance, 100, 200, they'll always talk about the minutiae of executing their race. And I always was a bit blasé about, say, the 1 and the 200. I was like, you just run as fast as you can.
Yeah.
But there are phases, obviously, in executing the way that they run. But I always thought, I was like, if I had a lane, this would be easy.
Well, that's
no one's going
thing.
to get in my way. I just run as hard as I can for however long it is.
Yeah,
but I wasn't fast enough to have a lane, so I had to stepping up. Well, you brilliant. You start on the waterfall start, so then you all get into lane one. And then we all get in each other's way in the 1500 meters.
But also the fear of falling over. Like we watched last night, someone fell over. And
they recovered well though.
They recovered, but just that would give me such fear going into a race, knowing that there's a possibility, like everyone's competing against each other. No one's going to be like, oh no, you go in front.
Yeah, you see a lot of like hands on the back of people's, because you want to get a spot and then you nearly get the spot, someone else gets it, and then they all slow back into you, and then everyone's pushing and shoving.
Oh, this is giving me flashbacks. This is when you knocked over that Aussie guy about 10 years ago, and the whole of Australia hated him.
That is 100% accurate. Commonwealth Games. Commonwealth Games 2006.
Didn't they put a dartboard on the front page of like the Australian newspaper?
They did, yeah. It was Aussie felled by Pom was the...
I've got that. Yeah. I've got that in the back of my bedroom door now.
Yeah. So yeah, I did Commonwealth Final 2006. I did knock over the Australian favourite Craig Mottram in front of 90,000 because it was a huge stadium at the MCG in Melbourne. And the whole stadium booed me for 2 laps.
It's tough, mate. It's tough. You know what? That's made you the man you are today.
Yeah, really boring. I just hide away from everything. But let's bring it back on track and away from me. The 5,000 meters as well. It's really unusual. It shows you how hot it is that they had water stations on the track for 5K heats. And I know there's something about humidity and temperature in combination that they, I think, legally have to. But unbelievably, athletes were taking it, which I think is pretty unusual to see them take water in the.
Well,
but then they're little cups as well, which you can't drink
Yeah.
at that pace. They're running whatever 68-second lap.
I wonder
it was
if they do
+30
the
though, wasn't it?
little, you know, in a marathon, if you get a cup, it's always the
pinch.
like make it pinch and
Pinch,
sip.
yeah,
I wonder
yeah.
if they went for the pinch and
No,
sip.
I was watching the coverage and I think it just went all over the face.
Just
So-
go, whatever you can take in.
So yeah, the other thing that we've been like, I suppose a highlight for me this week is the weird fastest losers. I know they don't call it fastest losers, but the next fastest. So if you're not an automatic qualifier in one of the rounds, you then are the next fastest. So for example, in the 200 meters semifinals, there's 3 semifinals. The first 2 in each go through, and then the next 2 fastest across all 3 go into the final. And they make them sit in the strange waiting room, a bit like the time trialists in cycling or the people at the bottom of the mountain in skiing, to wait to see whether they have got through. So they're in this sort of awkward sofa green room situation, waiting to find out whether, and all they want to do is go and cool down, and then sort of they can't control it at that point. Or that's what I would have wanted to do.
Oh, and then the fastest of all the heats goes through.
Yeah, but then it basically, if
Yeah.
you're in the first semi-final and you finish 3rd and 4th, you automatically have to wait around in that room because
I
you're
see,
by
yeah.
definition in that place. But then if the people in the next one go faster, then it's like, see you later.
Were you often in that
Oh.
room?
No, my point was they didn't used to have this room. It didn't exist. So it's a
I
new thing.
see.
Yeah.
So where did you wait?
Hey, I wasn't the fastest loser.
Oh, right. Sorry. Yeah.
Thanks,
good
mate.
point.
He was just a loser.
Savage, absolutely savage. Hey, no, I think I was automatic qualifier most of the time. So yeah, I'll take a proud claim to that.
Yes,
But yeah, they have
yeah.
that weird room. But then also, I think maybe we'll ask Jake and Ciara about it. This is the first year where they've abandoned that fastest loser system, but only for the 1500 and the 5K.
What's that?
I don't know. Maybe because the maths doesn't add up in the way they do the 100, 200, 400, and you need to get 8 into the final because there's 8 lanes.
Oh, right.
But in the 1500, they would normally have had first 5 and 2 fastest, and now it's first 6. And that's it. And so you've had real examples in the 5K and the 1500 where you could run a national record or a personal best or whatever, run really, really fast in your heat, which in previous years, as long as you're in the first 7 or 8, would have got you through. But then this year, the times are irrelevant. So you could have really unevenly weighted semi-finals that one runs much faster. People get to the final. Oh yeah, just we'll let people in behind the scenes here that Rick makes random hand signals every time I need to stop talking.
I have got a twitch, but there is another reason. as well.
Yeah. Because we were we're hoping people don't get bored before we get to the real action, which is talking to the athletes. But yeah, you would have had that kind of the tactics of. I think it's to get rid of the advantage. If you're in the last of say 3 semi-finals or 2 semi-finals, you would know exactly what you had to do. So if you're in the first 7 instead of the first 5 to guarantee it, and you ran fast in a certain time, you knew you were in. So that sort of makes it easier if you're in the later semi-finals.
Got it.
Yeah.
So you can tell Sarah and Rick were definitely bored by that.
Yeah, no idea what he's talking about.
No.
So now we're gonna.
Yeah, can we talk to some other people now?
Yes.
Yeah.
We've heard enough from you.
Stop talking, Andy. But yes, you are listening to the Running Channel podcast. And up next, we have got the thing that everyone's waiting for, which is we're going to be speaking to the 2022 World 1500 meter champion, Jake Wightman. So yeah, welcome. I've got lots of not too scary questions, but I guess just a very quick reflection of Budapest 2023 so far.
Yeah, it's been a unique experience for me because normally I would be hoping to have raced here, but with injuries,
Yeah.
I'm not. So I didn't know how I was going to feel about coming in to kind of watching the athletics from the other side, but I've enjoyed it more than I thought. I've done some media stuff. I enjoyed watching my own event to an extent, but the feeling was I would love to have been there still.
Yeah.
But it makes you realise that this probably, I would say, is one of the best world champs I've seen in my lifetime.
Really?
As an athlete. Yeah, I just think Budapest is such a good city to host it. We've had Doha and Eugene were the last 2.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the experience like
They're
this at all.
expensive for fans to get to, right? They're in difficult places to get to. And what struck me in the stadium is one, the noise, very hot as well, but also that people were super into it, really knowledgeable fans, and it was scattered around the stadium. You've got people that are super into the events that they could see up close, the different field events and so on, which is not always the case. Even in London, I would have said that because there's a lot of more casual fans, there was less knowledgeable. There were fewer knowledgeable people in the stadium.
Yeah.
Whereas I think at a lot of the big European cities like this, you get proper hardcore fans that are, and I saw you getting stopped and grabbed and stuff outside. And it's nice that people get to see that you guys are just kind of there enjoying it as well.
Yeah, you see, I saw Anna Hall, the heptathlete who came second to Johnson Thompson the other night. She was just wandering through the stadium in her gear, and like I was like, surely she should be getting mobbed.
Yeah.
So I still think there's a few fans who probably aren't aware out of context who people are, which
I think
is
it's
always the
unexpected.
case.
They
but
just don't. They wouldn't expect to see you
Yeah,
there,
so
and then
she
there's a
looks
lot of
a bit like
whispering,
Anna
like, "Is
Hall,
that? Could that be?" And then they're too scared to come and say hello.
Well,
So-
yeah, it's just the way. Yeah, it's the way it goes with it, where you want to attract people that have never watched it before, but at the same time, you want the diehards who really love the sport to be able to have access to it. And Eugene last year was tough because it was such a small stadium and such a small town that there wasn't enough accommodation or tickets available, and the flights were expensive, that the fans that wanted to come from overseas probably weren't able to. So this is the first kind of champs in a while that they've had access to be able to actually come and be a fan and see all of it.
Yeah, and a beer's only £2, as we just found out. So.
I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know that.
Yeah.
yeah, as you've only just found out because you couldn't do the foreign exchange conversion. So we at The Running Channel, we get loads of questions sent in, and if anyone would like to send a question in, you can do at podcast@therunningchannel.com. And we've also had hundreds of questions sent in on social media that we're going to put to you. Hopefully they're just a little bit different to the stuff that you might have got asked before when you get finished a race. So the first one is about Strava.
Okay.
So the question is coming from Toby, and Rick will be very cross because Toby hasn't told us.
Toby hasn't told us where he's from. I literally can't stand it when they don't tell us where they're from.
Or he might have done. We might just now have it on our list.
Oh, right, okay. Sorry, Toby.
So Toby asks, do you look at Strava segments the same way as us mere mortals and compete for crowns and leaderboards?
I'm going to disappoint everybody. I don't have Strava.
Yes.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Do you know what? I've noticed a lot of athletes this week don't have any social media for the first time at championships. Me and you spoke to one last night while we were waiting for a boat.
He was retired, I think.
He's retired, yeah. And a couple of others just haven't got it.
Yeah, it was. So Strava for me is something that I've never been too bothered about. It's like for me, my training, as long as I'm doing it and my dad, who's my coach, can see it, that's all that I'm bothered about. It's like, it'd be nice to have a few pats on the back with kudos every now and then when you've done a good session, just for a bit of validation. But
yeah, what if you put out this world-leading session that you've never done before? You get nothing.
Yeah, I think it was
Strava.
it Chepta guy that stopped his watch during his world record and put it up on Strava, and it's like, if that doesn't deserve the most kudos ever, then the system is flawed. But
the problem is if he's got his watch set up wrong, it might have only said he ran like 4,900 meters.
yeah, it'd be a true test for how accurate the GPS is.
Yeah.
But I think I've noticed that so I'm guilty of, if I have someone I train with or a friend that's on it, I'll be like, let me have a little look, and I'll browse through sometimes just seeing what pops up and who does what. But part of it is that I think a lot of elite athletes don't put their full training on there, which to me is like, that's not a good thing, because you want to show that you're a real person that has bad days and good days, whereas people love to just show off the really good stuff. Whereas like if I was on there, maybe at some point I would show everything. I'd want to see, like, you do have bad days and it's not sustainable to be like thinking that we're just doing these amazing sessions, because a lot of the time we're rubbish.
Yeah, like an Instagram filter on your like running life, as in making it look better than it is. Yeah. And yet the best thing is when you do see someone that has uploaded something that's genuinely world class, but they do it all the time, and it's just called like morning run. And
but imagine
it's like London Marathon in 2:01.
Morning shakeout, but you're actually going for a tempo. But it'd be like. It'd be tough to swallow the pride if you get all these people going like, oh, that's rubbish, and then you just like delete the post because you're so ashamed of it. But I believe it's like, you got to be transparent.
Is it also about like could you be giving away, tricks of the trade as well?
There's not really. I would say, like, you probably agree with this, Andy, where there's no real secret to it. It's like doing consistently like good enough stuff. So part of it is like, you could put out a session that you've done certain splits, but an athlete might not be able to replicate that in the same way you have. So it's generally just about you as an individual getting stuff done what's right for you. There's no special formula. Well, I haven't found it yet.
Yeah, that's the healthiest outlook, because I think if you did have a snapshot of someone else's training, then you might panic a little bit. Oh, could I do that?
Yeah.
Whereas the reality is, like you said, it's probably, you've got no idea what they did before that. They had 2 weeks to rest, to prep for that as a workout, as opposed to you got 80 miles on your legs and then you're trying to do something hard. Like it's really different. I'm sure we've got another question maybe.
Yeah, I've got another question. This one's from Ali, and that last year and this year they've asked, how much do you actually get to see of the paces that you travel to compete? Do you actually get to explore?
Where's Ali from?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Savage.
I don't know.
Another one.
Yes, Jake's joining the podcast.
No one's told us where they're from today.
He's from Staines. I don't know.
Somewhere in
that
London.
would do. That would do.
Staines.
Yeah, so that's the sad reality of being a professional athlete, is we travel the world going to all these amazing places, but rarely ever seeing that much of it. So this is the first champs I've been to, and I've actually seen the city we're in, and it's like a mini holiday. Whereas especially during COVID, they were flying us out literally as soon as we finished. So Eugene last year, I ran my final, and the next day at 12 o'clock, I was on a flight out. And then Tokyo, we didn't even get to leave the village because it was COVID restrictions. And then Doha, I think I saw nothing because it was too hot. London, I was in the town I live in, so I was like, I wanted to go home.
Kind of seen it
There's
before.
nothing to really see.
You're painting a picture here.
I know.
You're selling the athlete lifestyle.
No, but you know what it's like. It's genuinely, it's not glamorous. It's like a lot of the time it's very boring. So,
And you're trying to minimize how much you actually walk. Like these guys will, always absolutely take the mickey out of me for like being lazy. Because I'm like, well, I'll get a lift. I'm not getting the stairs. I'm not going to walk anywhere.
You lift up 2 stairs.
Is it carried like a prince? It sounds like.
That's it. I want these guys to have me on like a palanquin with the pillows and stuff. But no, that's the point, right? Is you're trying not to do anything extra, so you can't really go sightseeing the night before a Diamond League.
No, it's like the kind of most lavish thing I've ever done is met my family for a coffee or something. But I've been like,
Whoa,
I know, calm
Steady
down,
on.
calm
In the
down.
stadium.
But I've been very conscious about how far I'd walk to go and do that, and they'd always come to me. But it's nice when you do, for example, say if you have a good race or a good champs, if you get one night or a couple of days just to be able to celebrate and maybe see a little bit of it. So in Munich, last year we had European Championships, and I won a silver medal in the 800, and I'd seen nothing. We were on the last day.
Yeah.
So I made sure that I did something. So at 7 a.m. the next morning, there was a river. I don't know if anyone's been to Munich, but there's a river where like people go in it, and it's almost like a lazy river where you can just float down. Yeah. So at 7 a.m. I was in there, and then again at like 11, we all got on the bus to go to the airport.
So there is a life in athletics.
Yeah, it's a very rushed and compact life.
One,
But we have a long time retired where we can make up for these things we don't get to see.
Exactly. Every 4 years you can float down a river.
Is there one place on the list that you've been to that you're like, I need to go back there because I didn't get to see it?
Tokyo, for sure. Because Tokyo, when Tokyo was announced as Olympic Games and you knew there was a chance of going, it's like, what an amazing city to be able to go not only to compete, but also to go and see. It's like, how often do you get to go as far as Japan?
Yeah.
So to not even be able to leave the village apart from to go to the track was pretty sad. So
you get another opportunity, 2 years' time.
Exactly.
But then you won't get to see any of it because you'll be
No, that's the thing.
Holiday
Is like,
week after.
The sad reality is that we don't finish our seasons. Like for Ciara, for example, like she'll still be racing, having had a good world champs. You can't let your hair down and celebrate as much. You have to stay on it. So it's like you can't go on a holiday because you've got to go and run Diamond Leagues and finish your season as well.
I honestly envisaged it like, the football when they win. This is what I was thinking happens. You get on the top of a double-decker bus, party around the city for a few days.
It happens in probably just a bit delayed. So it will happen in September, not the bus around the city. Just to make it clear, that is not a thing in our sport.
You can get an open tour bus in London.
We did get it. I mean, I didn't get a medal, but we did get it for London 2012.
Oh, really? No,
for the whole Olympic team got paraded around the streets.
My mum has a convertible, so as far as it would get, I'd stand out of that and she'd drive me around.
I've got an image.
And my dad will clap.
Right, speaking of your mum, actually.
Hang on. Careful.
You set in front...
Our segues
where's
go,
going?
Rick.
Yeah,
That's
where's
not
this
that
going?
good.
No, this is good. This is good. In front of your mum, you set a very special record, so I hear. You set the local parkrun record in Worthing in the UK in 2019. So here's a big question, everybody. Could you beat Andy B at parkrun?
Well, obviously you could beat me. This is from Harry.
No, sorry, Andy. The actual
No, the-
parkrun world
What are
record
you talking
holder.
about me?
You, Andy
No.
B.
There's a new one now.
Savage.
Yeah.
Stand down.
So if anyone doesn't know, Andy held the parkrun record for, what was it, 10 years?
11 years.
11 years, sorry.
Yeah, get it right.
Not
Before you're going
that
to bash me about it,
Yeah,
get it right.
But he just lost it. What was it, last month, Sarah?
Yeah.
To go to Andy
couple of months ago.
Butchart,
Andy
is
Butchart,
a
who we had
new
on the
Balance athlete
podcast.
as well.
The new improved Andy
Yeah.
B.
Yeah.
What was your
Mark
time,
II.
Jake?
Yeah.
I've only done, I think I did 14:30 something there.
Not
but
bad at
so
parkrun, is it?
my local running spot, or like where I train, is Bushy Park, where Andy did that. And I've done that parkrun many times and I've been nowhere near. So like, honestly,
look at that.
you're like a legend.
He's just being nice. He's being nice.
So, honestly, you're a legend of Bushy Park. So I hear they're planning
Not anywhere else.
a statue
For
at some
other
point.
reasons, though.
Careful. Right. So actually, I nearly forgot to do this, but I've got a special, off microphone, I've got a special prop for everyone looking as well. So I don't
here
know if
we
you've
go.
ever seen these
Let's go
horrors.
into
I
the
saw them
park.
under the chair and I thought, why have you brought your slippers? That's what I thought originally.
So for everyone listening who's not able to see, I've brought my old spikes, so my old New Balance spikes. I was a New Balance athlete when I was competing. These I ran in the World Champs finals in Olympics I'm going to hand them to you just to because they're a bit different, right?
Yeah. So I'd say this is probably what I started running in. Do you know what? You're within New Balance. everyone always goes on about, oh, Andy Baddeley had his own shoe. It was like the Baddeley.
Yes.
Everyone always
that's
goes
not
on. It's
these,
like, how
but yeah.
cool is that? It was the
wasn't
Baddeley. It's not this, but you've got your name on the back, which is pretty cool. with it, but
they hooked me up, but the technology, I guess, is so different to. So I was put up to this by Pete Riley and John Evans. They wanted to know how fast you thought you could run in those spikes.
So the main difference is the foam. So now it's gone to the point where we have like a big stack of foam like across the shoe, whereas that is nothing. So what did you run?
So they're much taller then.
3:49 the mile in those.
Yeah, I was going to say 1500.
Yeah, it was quicker than that, over 1500, 3:34.
Yeah, so honestly, it's worth probably at least 2 or 3 seconds with new technology.
Wow.
Maybe more, Andy. Maybe more.
I know, that's what I wasn't looking
Don't
for that.
massage his ego.
It was more just, I guess, how
About
much
15 seconds.
how much of a shock is it to see it? Because like
You forget what it was like before, though, because we're so used to the last
Yeah.
few years having this new spike technology that looks just a complete contrast to that. It's like the whole mentality of what a spike should look like changed, really.
Yeah, the focus when I was competing was entirely on, I mean, these aren't even that light because the technology didn't exist in the foam, but it was just strip everything out, have like basically what amounts to like a strip of cardboard.
Yeah, even the amount it flexes.
Yeah,
So
I
you
mean,
can't
so
do that
it's so
to new
flexible.
spikes now. It's just like
They're so
a
stiff,
solid
right?
plate.
Yeah, so really different. Right,
Yeah.
there you go. That's just a little aside.
Yeah, no, it's cool. You honestly, you forget. Is there your signature on the front?
Oh yeah, I didn't normally write my name on my side.
Yeah,
I was like, I think someone asked me these were displayed somewhere, and then now
Yeah.
they're,
It's
honestly,
moved on a lot. They're cool.
yeah, right. Okay, a little bit of a segue, trip down memory lane for me.
Yeah. Well, you got there in the end. This question from Aaron: what are the lowlights of being a professional?
Yes,
The
this is what I want to know.
lowlight.
Like, what are the bad things that no one talks about?
I've never heard the word low light, but I guess that makes sense.
We bring
The
everything on this
contrast
pod.
highlight. Yeah. So I would say for me, like injuries haven't even been the worst bit, because I would say injuries is something that we accept that will happen as being part of this sport to this level, like pushing your body as hard, as far and as fast as it can go. You're guaranteed at points to get injuries. So I've never really been down from injuries, because I've had many years where I've had good runs without injuries. Like, this is just my time to serve my time with an injury.
Yeah.
Almost is the way I look at it. But the lowlights for me is if it doesn't go well and you don't race as well as you want. And like for me, Tokyo was like the lowest point for me, because I had everything was going towards going to these Olympic Games. And I was like, oh, I'm on track for a medal here. It's been like, my career has led to this point, and I finished 10th. And that was just like a gutting feeling to know it was done. And a lot of it is like, we sacrifice a lot doing this sport. It's like, it's good fun. And you have to remind yourself a lot of the time that you're getting like paid to do a hobby that started off as a hobby. And you'd probably be doing it even if you weren't doing it as a job. And we're lucky to be in this position, but you miss out on a lot of life events from doing it. And there's so many like occasions where I've almost got like big FOMO from not going on like holidays, celebrating birthdays, like big occasions. I had no like graduation from uni. I had no like holidays at the end of school and stuff. And it's like, they're the ones where you don't really get that back. But I speak to a lot of my friends who ran at university, and they all wanted to be doing what I'm doing now. And they were like, honestly, like we'd give anything to be in your situation. Is the one thing that you have to keep reminding yourself.
Doesn't make it easier though. Like that, if everyone has a bad race, like that happens sometimes. Sometimes it's in a really big race, sometimes it's not, and then you get a chance to bounce back and win the world championships, which is obviously incredible. But
there's always something. Like I'm a big glass half full guy with stuff, and I feel as though if you've got something that's gone wrong, there's always something you can learn and take from that to make sure it doesn't happen again. And if you've not learned and taken anything from it, then you've not looked at it the right way.
Exactly.
yeah, I took we were talking before the pod about this question about like the low lights of being a pro athlete. I took a very different, slightly less highbrow.
Andy, remind us of your one.
Well, there was two that I was thinking of. One is that you're traveling around the circuit and people don't like realize that you just get stuck in a hotel room with a total stranger most of the time.
Yeah.
So you rock up and like I mean, admittedly it's paid for. So your flight and hotels are usually paid for. But then, you go and they're like, oh yeah, pick up your room key, and you go in and someone's already in there. Their stuff's all over the room. You've got no idea who it is.
It's like, it's also some of the pairings they'll put are just, how have you thought of that? It's like, we don't even speak a word of the same language, and I've got to do 3 days with like, sometimes the beds are like that close together, and you're walking in, it's a stranger, and you're like introducing yourself, and you get lucky sometimes where it might be like, I've made friends from athletes. Like I was with an Aussie discus thrower last year who I'd never met before, and we were sitting watching films together throughout a lot of it.
You have to share a room.
Yeah.
Took your time catching up with the conversation there.
There
So
you
I
go.
was just processing that.
I rocked up at a meet once and was in with a Russian shot put guy.
Yeah.
And we couldn't communicate even.
Yeah.
So like you just kind of, and there's a lot of dead time before a race, because you might arrive mid-afternoon the day before, then you're competing at like 9 or 10 o'clock the following day. And you're just sat on twin beds, like maybe few feet apart, closer together than we are now.
Yeah.
And you're just like, I don't know, and you didn't have, I didn't have smartphones either.
Yeah, I'm
So
guessing
that
as well you
yeah.
didn't have the technology where yesterday in the taxi you communicated to the taxi driver to call Rick an idiot to the taxi driver through
we were
your
translating
phone.
Hungarian live
Yeah.
in the taxi.
Yeah.
But no, you didn't have that. Well, I mean, and you didn't have that much technology to entertain yourself either. So you'd be watching Eurosport in a foreign language, or you'd
Just
be,
with your blackboard writing
yeah,
some
yeah.
short.
I got my slate out. I was making my pre-race notes.
Yeah.
Carved into a piece of wood. Yeah.
No, it's like there's funny little things within the sport that people don't realize. Like it's even like the anti-doping stuff, where it's like someone will come. You have to give a slot every day where you're guaranteed to be. So a lot of the time you do it late at night or early in the morning because you're guaranteed to be at home.
Yeah.
So I'm 6 a.m. So 6 a.m. the doorbell rings. A man that you've probably met before because you get the same people coming but potentially haven't has to come and pretty much stand and watch you go for a wee.
Yeah.
And it's like
that's a real low light.
Yeah, and it's like when people tell you that, and it's like it just becomes so common. It's like in you come, let's get this done. Get your pot. He'll
Also-
stand there. You have to drop your trousers.
Yeah,
and-
round the
He's
round
seen
the
a lot
ankles.
of them before, to be
It's
fair.
not like it's not a subtle thing. It's round your
Yeah.
ankles. Like you've got to be naked so they
Yeah,
can see you
yeah.
haven't got something like strapped to your body to kind of give you the sample, which
it's
is
a weird part of the sport.
so. Yeah, I don't, let's be honest. I don't think that's a particular highlight for the people that have got to watch it either.
I mean, I think that's just great information.
Yeah,
Can
I
you
don't
just
think they've gone
imagine
home
though?
and said,
Yeah, like meeting a stranger. What do you do? Wow.
Wow.
yeah.
I'm
Funny
a
you
hot
should
guy.
ask.
Yeah.
You want to see my boot?
Incredible. So a massive thank you to Jake, absolute legend. We've really loved you having on, some amazing questions as well and some interesting answers. And now in the magic of editing, we're going to have a seamless introduction to Ciara. So yeah, welcome. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, this is really exciting for me. Just talking about 1,500 meters, Rick and Sarah having to talk out, like to put up with me kind of geeking out about it.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
a
you're
lot.
good.
It's a lot.
But I'm going to jump straight in with a story which is going to be really embarrassing for me if you don't remember it.
Oh, God.
So,
I have terrible memory.
okay. No, I'm just not very memorable. So I think it's fine.
No, you are, because I had the shoes. I was
you really?
in awe whenever I was a kid in your presence, for sure.
Well, so the story is that you've been with New Balance for a long time, right?
Yeah.
And the first time that I think that you were having the conversations as like 17, 18-year-old, like upcoming superstar in Ireland, my understanding was that New Balance had flown you out to New York to kind of wine and dine you and say like, we're the brand to come and be with. And I remember being asked to go out for dinner with you. So myself and Jenny Simpson, who ended up becoming world champion running in New Balance shoes as well, we were like, it was an easy gig for us. We just got to go and chat to you. We had dinner. So I was wondering if you remember that, and then if I'm going to claim full responsibility for everything that's happened since then, based on that one conversation.
No, I definitely do, because I felt like that was like so like high wing. I was getting flown to New York. I had never been to America before.
Yeah.
That was like a massive flight. I'm pretty sure like my sister came with me, or my mom and dad, because I had 2 trips out, one to sign my contract and one to head out. So I can't remember who was with me at that occasion. And I feel like I was really naive. Like I was going through the New York cities, and John Evans was having to like pay like Spider-Man money because I wanted a picture with him, but I didn't know. I didn't know you had to pay those people. I just thought this was odd man in a Spider-Man outfit, and I was like, look at this.
So this is John Evans, who's responsible for like bringing the athletes into the
Yeah.
brand, right?
Yeah, and I'm like, I just thought you guys would just happen to be there at the time. I feel really like how fancy that they thought they needed to. I would have been signing that contract anyway. But yeah, I've been with New Balance since I was about 18, 19. So yeah, I remember that well. I think I was a bit like in awe and really nervous heading for dinner with you guys.
It's just because he had his own trainer brand. That's it. I mean, he's
both did.
He's so normal.
Yeah, Jenny's
Yeah.
name was on the women's version.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Of course, you had his and her trainers.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Don't think that's how my wife referred to
Yeah, I was going to say. Yeah.
but yeah. And then just to wrap that story up, I believe coming over from Ireland as well, I remember that we were like walking down the street just off Broadway, and then the Edge from U2 was like, I think he was working on a musical, and he popped out the door. And I know like we just talked about John Evans, but he fully claimed it as a like, oh yeah, we just, we got the Edge out as well. U2's come to say hello, like
I was
please
literally
sign.
like, well, John Evans is like, it's the Edge. You should get a picture with him. I'm not going to lie to you. Like, if it had been Bono, I definitely would have recognized him. I felt terrible. Like, 18, 19-year-old Ciara wasn't 100% sure. I knew as soon as he said it was from you two. But yeah, I was like, New Balance just...
Yeah,
this
this
is
is
just
how
life.
this is how they
It
roll.
was like,
Spider-Man,
that's
the
just
Edge,
it.
they bring him out
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah.
It was like one of the Transformers. It was awesome.
Yeah, so Jake talked about the athlete life being boring and low key.
Yeah, the start for me for that professional side was very glamorous. But yeah, we also have the mundane parts that
Yeah.
everybody thinks like I was laughing, chatting to some of the Irish people. I was like, oh, this is the glamour. Whenever you're like on a really sweaty bus to the track, like it's a 45-minute bus ride from the Irish hotel to the track, and you're like sweating and you're nervous and you're like, goodness, this is. And then whenever I was given a partial sample after the final, waiting to produce 10 more mils of pee.
Oh yeah, you can give it for context. You can, if you don't wee enough, then they make you do it again.
Yeah,
so you just have to sit in a room drinking for water for. Actually, in German meets they'll give you beer, right?
I'd say it would have been better if I had been able to start getting on the sesh or something. But I was just sitting there drinking freezing cold water. I was like,
and then you find
so
once you then manage to do it, for then the next 4 hours, all you need to do is go for a
you're
pee.
up all night peeing. I drank about 5 liters of water just waiting to go.
Yeah.
Not five. That would have been dangerous.
This is the glamour.
Yeah, it's a very glamorous sport. It is indeed.
So now we should jump into Budapest and like I saw the interview with you afterwards. Like obviously really excited. Like you can't ask for more than a national record, highest ever placing in a world champs and finishing 4th. So I guess you want to sum up your week?
Yeah, I suppose like I came into this championship like I keep my cards pretty close to my chest, thinking I could really have a chance of a medal here for the first time at a global championship. And that's, I was kind of backing myself to be up there. So when I came off with 4th, there was a little bit of disappointment because I thought, I'm so close. It's like, oh, that could have been my moment to get a global medal. Like it's always my dream to see the tricolour going up and a medal ceremony for Ireland. So I probably, it was such mixed emotions. I was coming to the guys and like yourselves, we often know a lot of the people that are chatting to us when they're straight off the track. So I gave our journalists a big hug, and I was like, oh, I'm disappointed. But then like, I'll be honest, over the next few days, the realization of like I came 4th in the world in was arguably one of the best women's 1500 meter fields ever. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. So, and as you said, a national record around 3:56, but off a really slow start.
This is what I was going to say, right?
So I was like, oh, what could I run if it was steady?
Yeah, and obviously bear in mind,
and not hot.
For context for everyone, Kelly Holmes, like one of the UK's most famous 800, 1500 runners, did the double in Athens Olympics. I think she ran 3:57 to set a British record in the final of the Olympics to win it. You've run quicker than that off a slow pace. And yeah, in 1500 meters, pacing is everything. So yeah, it's one of the fastest finals of all time against 3 or 4 of, well, 3 plus the rest of the field of the greatest athletes of all time.
And what were you expecting the final to be like? Like from the heats, did you get any like inkling of what the tactics would be in the final?
To be honest, like whenever you were looking at the heats, if you particularly looked at the 2 semi-finals, God, there was 2 completely different types of racing. I was in the first semi-final and we like had what I would say is like your bog standard get through the semi-finals. Like went out, it wasn't crazy fast. You're like, this is going to wind up, so be ready for it. So that's really like how I would imagine. If you were going to say that's how most semi-finals go, then the next semi-final, they went through, it was one in like what, 3:55 or something?
Yeah, so like as fast as the final, like,
so like
those are crazy fast times.
I was watching it from after my race being like, did they just finish that second semi-final, went through in 3:55? I'm not gonna lie to you, I went, brilliant. Yeah,
you're glad, right? They're tired. You're tiring them out.
Sounds terrible, but I'm like, if they want to run the legs up themselves, I'm glad I was in the slower heat.
Well, that's the weird thing I was talking about a little bit earlier. Like, has that changed it this year? There's no kind of fastest spots for people. So it's irrelevant how fast you run in the rounds in the 1500 and the 5K.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I feel like coming into it, I thought it would make the racing a lot more tactical, bring it
slower.
to what championship racing was like for you. And like in similar vein, I would prefer that it was like yours. Like, I personally love a good old let's sprint to the finish line type race. I love the tactics of the 15. I'm ready for it. So I didn't know what was going to come out of top 6 and straight through. And I honestly still don't know, because there are 2 semi-finals that have not told you exactly how it goes. I think it just depends the athletes in the semi-final and what it would be. But it is tough, because I look at that semi-final and there was girls, Sarah Healy, my Irish counterpart, she went sub 4 to run 3:59 and didn't make it through. Yeah. And like it's crazy to think that didn't make the final.
Well, yeah, and there's been a weird generational shift, I guess. I was in that era where sub 4, and you were like, there's only a few people that went sub 4 a year, probably.
Yeah, now it's just you have to get an old sub 4 out to get through.
Yeah,
it's crazy. And like, I suppose sometimes I'm wondering like, do I wish I was born in a different era? Could I have won more medals? could have been up there in a global championship. But there's a real pride and joy of being out there in the best that it's ever been.
Yeah.
You toe the line with Faith Kipyegon, the greatest
Yeah.
of all time, quite arguably. And like that, I don't know how the race is going to go, because Faith could go and try to take this out in a sub 350. In which case you're like,
But that's not for me, probably.
good luck.
Yeah.
Like you have to know your own ability, because I could go out and try to stay with her, but I would not last the full 15, so I'd be gone. So like if I took the previous world champs in Doha, I came into that championships and I made the final, and I was absolutely delighted to be in the final. That championships went out hard, and I think it was Sifan just took it from the gun. So I knew, I was like, get on the pain train and hold on for dear life. I came 9th or 10th in that championship, was absolutely over the moon with that. And I witnessed like 4th place running, I think it was a 354 at that championship, and
crazy,
not medal. So the women's 15 is going into a realm that's just phenomenal.
Yeah.
You have girls that are doing times that people probably thought a woman would never do. It's really exciting to be part of that, I suppose.
Yeah, that's a healthy outlook on it, I think.
This also links really nicely to a question that we got coming in from Sally, who hasn't told us where she's from. Sorry, Rick. She's asked, does running ever get comfortable? And she said, does it still feel for you like an itchy jumper you can't take off?
Oh my goodness.
It's a great
Does
analogy.
it ever get comfortable? I had my previous coach, Steve, always said, like, you have to learn to be comfortably uncomfortable all the time. So that's in training. You need to find that discomfort that you can cope with, and you stay there and you flirt with that, and you keep going. Even like, that's never easy. Like if you see me after, you guys won't witness this, I'll throw up. It's well known. Like my like the girls in the races are usually like walking past me in the hall after, being like, "You're all right," and I was like, "All good, carry on." Like I've been at races where Laura has literally just brought me a bottle and set it down. She's like, "I'll see you in the cool down," and I'm like boking up my ring at the side of a track. It's like something that I've done since I was quite young, and I think it's maybe how I cope with how like my body copes with the lactic. I don't know. I'd prefer if I didn't. But also, like,
you've got a lot in common there, actually. It's just for different reasons that we throw it up. But
so like, it's never got that comfortable. But even in the lead up to it, like, it was quite interesting chatting to some people after, and they were like, "You're a different animal out there this season and last season."
Mm-hmm.
It's like you look so calm. You looked like I felt really ready for the final. I was absolutely cacking it for the first round. Super nervous. I think it's nearly worse.
Yeah.
You go out in the first round,
Yes,
and you'd backed yourself to be up there in the final. You know, you've royally beeped up.
Do you think I always thought of that as, because it's like it's a no-win situation. Like for me, it would have been the same at like a national championships where you're trying to make the team in the first place.
Yeah.
You've got to run the time, then you've got to place in the first two.
Yeah.
And you're like, but if you don't do that, but in your mind you're thinking I could win a medal. Like you've failed at the first hurdle, and so there's nothing to gain and everything to lose, which is probably not the right mindset. But
but it is, and I think it's good to have that nervousness. And for me, that's probably one of the hardest parts of athletics, is me coping with those nerves, because sometimes they can feel crippling, and you need to be in that moment where you're not talking yourself out of it. Whereas final, I felt fantastic. I was like in the zone. I was loving it. But I've had to deal with some really tough nerves. I work with a sports psych and my own coach Helen to deal with those, and I get nervous for training sessions.
Yeah.
Like anxious that I want the training session to go well, and you have to like sometimes put it into perspective to be like,
that's how you get up for it though.
job.
That's how you get up for to push yourself, because you're not doing it every workout, right? But there's the odd one where you know it's coming and you're like,
oh
right.
yeah, it's going to hurt.
yeah.
So you get nervous before races, and you get nervous sometimes before training, but you don't get nervous when you do media, do you?
Evidently not, do you?
I think that,
Unless after this you just run to
you
the
don't
back
see
and
the
we're
sweat
like,
patches. I had this top on for a
Hey, we
reason.
can go and just cack up together.
were you hoping to be more intimidating than you are?
No, definitely not. Obviously nowhere near. But that does bring me on to a very good question
Excellent.
from At the Third Degree, who says, do runners from the same country agree on tactics before races like the 1,500 metres?
Well, certainly not from Ireland. I'm pretty sure the Brits don't tie up to see who's going to. I don't know. It's certainly something that I've wondered for some other nations.
So you don't sort of ever get they're not like in a kind of a little huddle before or anything like that. You don't see coaches or agents kind of bringing it together.
I
never did, but
I've often wondered if some nations where they are trying to break another nation. So like, I'll just for argument's sake, like say Kenya and Ethiopia, two really big rival countries, would they want to break somebody to make their person the champion?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Because you're also asking, they used to, and whether it's so this is just before I was running, but El Garouge, who was the greatest, he still holds the world record. He always had a pacemaker in the final. So he had
Of championships.
Yeah. So he would have a Moroccan teammate whose job it was to make the final with him.
Wow, that's incredible.
So I think his name is
that fair?
Adil Couch.
Yeah, it's not-
Probably, but
I
you
think
had to
that's
have someone in
illegal.
that country good enough.
Is it illegal?
I suppose if somebody wanted to sacrifice themselves for that, like
Yeah.
I don't think, but like part of me is kind of like, it nearly adopts a approach like cycling has, I suppose,
Yeah.
that you have a team
Yeah.
then.
Team that is just.
I don't
working
know.
for you.
For me, it kind of goes against, for myself, the purity of like the sport.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I quite love that, especially at championships. Diamond Leagues, we have pacemakers, but championship running, it's like every man for themselves.
Yeah, and that's what's amazing about the championship running is it takes any chat about technology or faster tracks or whatever, like it doesn't matter because you're all there and you've all got to try and be the first person across the line. So the
Imagine
excitement is that.
Imagine as well though, like if your job is there to get into the final and pace it, you're not going to be that much. Like imagine if that was your job and then in the actual final, the person went, actually, I fancy a medal.
Like, I sort of imagine that's what happens a bit more. But
I would do that.
I mean, I don't know. I wasn't privy to those conversations, but certainly watching that generation, like every major championships, El Garouge would have had another Moroccan athlete who would go to the front, take it out, make it really hard and fast because El Garouge liked it running the way I described how I would have preferred to run. And so that's kind of a way of getting around what I described when we're talking about. That's a way of getting around potential tactics if you're the best runner but don't want to kind of exert yourself.
You don't want to be the one that Jake's sitting on to sprint past.
Yeah, you don't want to be getting shot at by the people behind you. So you make someone else do it for you. Yeah.
And then one day, though, that runner who's been running right in front, just being the pacemaker for you for all those years, just goes, you know what, this does my head in and just nails it and wins the goal.
Oh yeah,
You kind of like to see that, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like quite
I
often,
love
like people probably underestimate it. It's so tough being that person leading it.
Yeah.
Like that person, it doesn't make sense, but it's more exhausting. So quite often that person isn't the person that wins.
Yeah, it's a weird thing that unless you've been in it, it's hard to imagine that it's harder being in front because it's not a massive drafting thing like it is in cycling.
Yeah.
Like it's 40% easier cycling behind
It's a
someone.
mental thing, probably.
Yeah, you're just not thinking about the time. I'll just keep up
Yeah.
and then I'll sprint past at the end. Easy.
Lovely.
Yeah.
So you've been listening to the Running Channel podcast. Thank you so much for New Balance to bringing us here to Budapest and for Jake and Ciara for sitting down with us. It's been absolutely amazing. And if you want to send in any questions, please do send through podcast@therunningchannel.com. And where do you want us to go next? Let us know.
Somewhere not as hot as this.
And
Yes.
with easier travel.
Yes, that would be amazing. Yeah, thanks for listening.
Bye.
Oh.